Okay, hello guys. Welcome to another devlog. It's gonna be a nice, short, and sweet one. Just gonna smash through this one because I think it's gonna be something relatively easy to do. But in this one, I'm gonna be making a session marker. For those of you that don't know what session marker is, basically in games like most sport games, skate games, that kind of thing, you have a session marker that basically you're able to put down, and it's just a location in the world. And when you run off and try a line or try a couple tricks, you can just hit a button to go back to that session marker, and it'll just teleport you back to that spot. It's basically just a really easy way of yeah, of like setting a spot if you want to try a line. And it's really useful. So here, if you want to try a specific line, say you're up here or something, you want to try a specific line around here, you mess up halfway and you want to go back and do it again, you just hit to go back to drop a session marker here, and then you just hit to go back to the session marker, and then you could try again. So it's really useful, and we found it's something the backers have been, if you any backers watching, you'll know you've been asking me to do it and asking us to do it for a while. So here we go, we're gonna do it now. So yeah, let's get into it straight away. First thing that I think we're gonna do, I'll set this up now as we go. So, first thing we're gonna do is blah blah blah. Input. Yes, we're gonna add an input. Because we need an input for our session marker. I'm gonna make it left on the D-pad. Oh, it didn't add, so just hit up here, add input. I'll make this a bit of a tutorial sort of. Oh, I did add. Whoops. Oh, those are axis markers, yeah. So we'll call it session marker, and we'll make it left on D-pad and the T button for teleport. So those are the two for the session marker. Basically that button, when you press it, it allows you to press on the keyboard or thing, whatever key you want to have assigned to the input. It's a lot easier than searching through this. So yeah, and it also make sure you don't have to be like, oh, what button's what? So always just press that down and you can select the button on the actual device. Well, don't do that because it changed it. Okay, so we've got our input set up, which is all we're gonna have to do here really. Now we're gonna go into our code, and where are we? Okay, so there's a couple things we're gonna need to set up. Before I touch on the player controller class, so this class here controls our player, which it controls all the inputs. It's where we bind all our inputs to. Let's set up all the character functions. Now I want the teleport and everything to be part of the character itself. So let's set up all of them. So we're gonna have, really, I think the only variable this should store is going to be a vector of the session marker. And this is gonna be session marker. It could just be a vector, yeah. And that's going to be, we're gonna initialize that as the 0 vector. Because we don't want it to be anything that starts off. Now, the way I'm gonna do my session marker here in this is, I'm gonna have it that when you press it once, it sets the marker. If a marker is set and you press it once, it teleports to the marker. And then I'm gonna do it that if you then press and hold, it then it then resets the marker, so it clears your previous marker. Yeah. Yeah, so that's how I'm gonna do it, rather than a double. Initially, I was thinking like we could do it by a double click, but I feel like press and hold is a bit smoother. It feels a bit more, it feels better. So we're gonna do it like that. Okay, so we've got the location held. Now we need to store a couple different variables. That we need a couple different functions, and we're gonna have to make them public because I need to access them from my player controller class. So we're gonna need them up here. And the variables the functions we're going to need, we are going to want to set session marker. We're going to want to teleport to session marker. Teleport to session marker. And we are going to want to reset Yep, there we are. Reset the session marker. I'm keeping this in just the public, and I'm not making the blueprint callable because I don't actually need to expose any of these to blueprints. I don't think I'm gonna. I want to keep all the setting and teleporting done within code, as well as the resetting. So the logic of the marker is kept within code. What I will do, however, is I will expose. Oh, I will expose the get method for the session marker to blueprints because I think I'm gonna need that for when I want to get the location to put the spawn emitter. Because at the end of the day, we're gonna want some kind of like light to show or like some kind of emitter thing to showcase where the session marker is in the world. So we'll have get session marker there. Um yeah, yeah. So we'll have that. And that could be const too, to be fair, because we're just gonna do it better. So okay, let's go through all of them. Let's generate the function definitions. So for get session marker, all we're going to do is return session marker. Simple, easy as pie. Reset session marker. We want to reset our session marker. All we're going to do is set the session marker. I'm going to set that to the 0 vector. What am I doing? There we go. I'm going to set that to the 0 vector. So that when we reset the session marker, it goes back to 0. And then what we can do later is check. We know a session marker is down if the session marker is not a 0. Basically, is not the 0 vector. Teleport to session marker. Ah, yes. Okay. So all we're going to do here is set the actor location to the session marker. Yeah, that's pretty simple. And then for setting session marker, oh yeah, we want to set the session marker. Do we need to pass it there? Oh no, because we'll just we'll just get actor location. Ah yes, right. So we'll do session marker is equal to get actor location. Aha, lovely. So yeah, so when we want to set the session marker, we just set the session marker. We just get the actor location and set that as the session marker. When we want to teleport to the session, why did it go above that? That's really weird behavior. Why are you up here? What? That's weird. I want to move that to below. No. Yeah, I want to move it to below that. I don't know why it's up there. So yeah, we want to set the session marker. We just set the session marker to the active location. Just gets the current active location. Perfect. Teleport is sets the active location to wherever the session marker to wherever the session marker is in the effector. Reset sets it back to 0. I think that's all we need from here. That's all we need in the player character. And then we have the get, which returns the session marker location. So that's all we need to know. That's all we need from here, I believe. In here now, oh yeah, first thing we need to do in this human player control class. Okay, now before we do that, let's create some variables. So what we want to do now, we're on the controller, and this is where we're going to program all the control stuff. So the press and the hold and everything like that. So I think to do this hold down thing, we're going to need a couple things. First thing we're going to need is whether or not okay, so the way we're going to do it, okay, yeah, we're going to use the tick component in this. So this ticks every frame basically, and as you can see here, what we do this before is we basically do like an if check to see if we want to basically check poll an input, and then we add delta time every frame, and that'll count it up basically, because delta time, it gets your relative frame rate in when counting seconds. So you every tick you add your delta time to get how long this is in seconds. So if this is being polled, then adding delta time every frame, this will tell you the time increase in seconds relative to your frame rate. So what we want to have here is we're going to need a couple things. First thing we're going to need is a variable, like before, to see, do we want to poll session marker input equals false. So this is whether or not we want to see whether or not the we want to actually poll, like, are we holding down the session marker button. Then we're going to need a variable to store the time. So we'll say float session marker input time equals 0.0f. So this is going to hold how long we've held down the button for. Yeah. No, let's add one more thing, because what I've learned from a few months of doing this full time is it's always good to hold variables. So what I was going to do before is basically say, oh, if we've held it down for how many seconds, and just write the variable out for how many seconds we've held it down. But a good way to approach it is to actually create a threshold value and then put that in the code itself. So when you need to come, if you want to change however long it needs to be held down for, we just change one variable rather than going into code and having to change multiple places if we use it multiple times. So we'll have here session marker input buffer we'll have as 1 second. So if you hold it down for a second, that's when it should be, it's going to reset. So if you press it and you haven't held down for a second, it's going to set. If you press it again and there is a session marker, it's going to teleport you to it. If you hold it down for a second, it's going to reset the session marker. Cool. And that's the buffer that we're going to have to check it. Okay, so now we can create the functions. So we're going to need a couple. So the first one I think we need is the session marker pressed. And we're going to need a session marker released, because the way we're doing it is we're checking how long we've held it down for. So we need to press the release. And all pressed is going to do, I think, is this is basically just going to set that poll. So poll session marker input equals true. So this is going to tell us to start ticking on and adding the delta. We haven't done that yet, but we're going to do that now actually. This is going to tell us, okay, now we want to start polling that session marker input. So then in our tick function, we can say here, session marker poll, to see how long session marker button is pressed. And we'll say if poll session marker input. So if that's true, then we want to say session marker input time plus equals delta time. So whenever, if we do want to poll this input, we're going to add delta time to it. And then what we can do is basically change this variable between true and false when it's pressed and released, which is how we're going to do it. So then we go back in here. So when session marker is pressed, so we just say session, we just set it to true. Cool. And now we need, when session marker is released, we want to set poll session marker input equals false. Yeah, so when session marker is released, this now becomes false. We don't want to check if we're holding it down anymore because we're not. Now what we need to do, then we can utilize the input time. So we'll say, oh, okay. Well, now we can use that variable we created, this input time variable, because now that's going to be whatever, because however long we held it down for, because we added to it there. So in here, we can now say if session marker input time is greater than session marker input buffer, so that's how long it needs to. I want to change that input threshold. I prefer threshold. I should have done a refactor. It's yep. If it's greater than the threshold, then we need to call the functions that we need to do. Okay, so if we held it down for longer than that, that means we want to reset the session marker. So we're going to get our SPP owner. This basically, if I show you this, this here, we use it often. Just goes to the function that does it. Let's write something. There we go. Yeah, this just gets the where is the stupid? Okay, well, basically summarize. This just gets this character class, the human character class. That's what it's used for. The SPP or that. It allows us to basically reference the third person character we have, that class. So that's why we use it. Yeah, not much else to explain that really. That's what it does. It does its thing. Where were we? I'll just search session. I do. Okay, there. So yeah, so then we're gonna get this, and we're gonna say now, this is again why we made it public, because we want to access those functions from that SPP class, character class. We want to say reset session marker. Yeah. So if the session marker input time is greater than the threshold that we set of 1 second, which is what was 1 second, right? Yeah. Then we want to reset the second session marker, and that will set it to the 0 vector because we just defined it here. So that's good. That should be fine. Now we need to say if it's not, so it's less than the session marker input threshold. That means you've pressed it and released it within a second. That means you don't want to reset. We now need to basically check if there is an existing session marker in place. So then we say if get SPP owner, get session marker is equal to the 0 vector. So basically, if the session marker is a 0 vector, that means you haven't set anything. Then we want to get SPP owner set session marker. So if we haven't got an existing session marker because it's do you know what I'm gonna do? Let's make this better. Let's yeah, let's do this properly. Let's actually let's do this. Let's do this properly. Let's go void is existing session marker No, but this shouldn't be held in here because it's not a control variable. Oh yeah, we're in the human character. Yeah, we are the human character. Yeah, we want to do it here actually. Um, no, because I need to access it from the other one. So I need it up here. So void is existing session marker. So we're going to check, is there an existing session marker? Ah, that's wrong. This should return a bool. We show that generate a definition for this. And we're going to say if we're going to do a tertiary, I don't even know what the word for it, but a special kind of if where you don't have to type in the if. And we'll say session marker is equal to f vector 0 vector. So this, and then we do a question mark. This basically says if the session marker is equal to the 0 vector, then we're going to say false. That means there is no session marker. Otherwise, we're going to say true. So if the session marker is equal to the 0 vector, am I recording this, by the way? Yeah. If the session marker is equal to the 0 vector, we return false because that means there isn't a session marker. If it's not equal to that, we are going to return. And we can do this here. Yeah. We're going to return false. If it is equal to this, if it's is equal to the 0 vector, return false. If it's not equal to 0 vector, that means we set a marker and then we're going to return true. So there is an existing session marker. Now in here, what we'll do is, rather than have this function here, we'll just do, rather than have this equals. I know it looks like it's more work, but it's better structured. Is because the way we do now, there we go. So now we just have a check to see if there's an existing one, right? And then the logic for checking that is all still held within the character, which is correct. If the existing owner, so there is an existing session marker, we set the session marker. If there's not, if there isn't one, get a wrong. This is wrong. If there is an existing session marker, we need to teleport to the session marker. If there isn't an existing session marker, then we need to set the session. That's because we've changed the logic a bit. So if this is true, that means a session marker exists, teleport to it. If this is false, there is none, set it. And what we have here, this check is done within whether or not we press it for long enough. And if we do this, and we don't, we do that. So now this basically, we check, have we held it longer than the threshold? Yep. Reset the session marker. Nope. Okay, let's check. Is there a session marker in place? Yep. Teleport to it. If not, set one. Cool. And let's just do a couple print debug statements. We'll do default to marker. Set marker. Just so we can see what's being done where. Reset marker. Cool. And now, last thing I think we need to do is just set up the input. Yeah, let's just set up the input. So, where we have all our bind events, we're just going to copy this across. Take it down one, do this here, do it again. We're going to change this to session marker, which is the input name we give it to in our input action. Change this to session marker. If the event is pressed, we need to call the session marker pressed, session marker released. We need to change this to IE underscore released. Now if we run this, hopefully, fingers crossed, it works. I don't see why it shouldn't, but you never know. It's logically very quite simple. Just makes a lot of sense, the session marker stuff. And the only real crux of the whole thing really was the time of it. But once you understand the delta tick stuff, it's actually a very, very, very easy thing to add to your project. So if any of you are looking for projects for this kind of thing, this is all you have to really do. And then obviously now I'm going to go ahead and make it look pretty, and I'm going to spawn an emitter when in the location when we press it and all that stuff, and maybe change the character input so you can't move, and maybe it teleports with an special animation or whatever. But that's all additional stuff that's relevant to your individual game. So, but yeah, the logic of it is this. That's not taking too long either. How long has that taken? 26 minutes. Half an hour to create an entire session marker. That's not too bad. Not too bad, guys. So if this decides to load, there we go. So there was no errors, so hopefully it just works. It's a lot of code I did without testing much, so hopefully, fingers crossed. But I'm pretty confident in the methodology of it, so should be fine. Ignore my low scalability unlit world, just because when I run the game, my mic goes to poop. So if I play, so now if I press left, set marker, run away, press left again, teleport to marker, bingo. Now if I press again, if I hold it down now for a second, release, reset marker, and now if I run off, I knew it can just go right, reset marker. Okay, so why does it keep resetting the world? Okay, so it initially worked. So there's something here with setting of variables. Here. Keeps calling this. Why does it keep calling this? Repeat if this. Oh, I know why. I know why. It's because here, so we stopped the poll input, but this variable this is always going to return true after the first attempt, because this is just going to be set to the time at which we stop it. So if we hold it for longer, it's going to stay as longer. So basically, at the end of this function, once we've done all we wanted to do, what we need to do is just say session marker input time equals 0.0. So now we can run it, and this should work just fine. What a silly mistake. I knew I could never get anything first time. I really thought I could one bang this and just be like, okay, run recording, quick 30 minutes. I thought I'd do it in 15, but explaining things as you go along does make it a lot slower. So I can smash it out in 30 minutes. Nice and easy. Before you know it. I'm gonna quickly just pause this while it does this stupid process, and I'll come back. And we're back. Not quite. Damn it. Oh, you guys can wait with me. It's just boring all the time. Alright, cool. So let's try this out. There is live coding. I just don't use it because it just never works for me. I don't know why. It takes just as long, so I don't know what's wrong with me. But anyway. So go now. Set marker. Teleport to marker. Teleport to marker. There's stuff to do like resetting the input and whatnot. Teleport to marker. That works. So now if we hold it, reset marker, Set marker. Teleport to marker. Lovely. Awesome. Works like a charm. I held it for a bit of time there. I might drop how long you have to hold it for. Yeah, it's a bit long. But that works anyway. That's the logic. I'm just going to change. And now you guys see why it's good to make this a variable. I don't need to go into code to change anything. I can just change here. But that's just a small tweak. Yeah, that works. So that's what you guys can do. Yeah, that all works. So that's all good there. This is my pride and joy, by the way. This is the gameplay menu that I added gamepad integration with. That I'm very proud of. But you guys, I'll actually show you it just because I'm so annoyed as to the work that went into doing that. Because it actually, if you're like, you'd think Unreal would have some kind of built-in navigation for gamepad in UI widgets, but it just doesn't exist. Like look at this. Look at this. It's absolutely, and then like in each one I have like all the navigate stuff. This is to highlight the buttons, just to reset the button colors. Although this is beautiful. This is the poll the input, the poll to select it, like all this setup for that small menu. It was, yeah, but that's just my rant anyway. Thanks for coming to my TED talk. But yeah, that's this done. I'm gonna now go ahead and make it pretty. Add spawn in the emitter, blah blah blah, all that stuff. Yeah, yeah, that's it pretty much. Cheers guys, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.